Hi, I'm Mark's brother. He was always Mama's favorite. So, no, thanks so much. I thought what I'd do tonight is just say a little bit about my experience at the business school and how it helped me, and particularly single out two of the people that really made a huge difference and helped me not only get through the business school but go on to the next phase. Before I start, though, I thought I'd give a little background. I graduated in the summer of 1968, and that was right at the height of the Vietnam War. And for those younger, too young to remember, in those days they had the draft. And the way it worked was they would give you 4 years for a student deferment, and then after that you had to join the armed forces or the reserves or something, or put yourself up for the draft. In those days, an extra 10 months seemed, too much. So I decided to put myself up for the draft. And I took a job down in New Orleans and was kind of waiting around for the draft, hoping in those days, everybody hoped the war would be over and some miracle would happen and the draft would end. And it didn't. But a miracle did happen, which was my draft board made a mistake and sent me another student deferment. Now, as I'm telling this story, if you're thinking of a movie character, think Forrest Gump. I'm going to tell you my story a bit. You'll see that even when things, I walked into things at the right time, unknowingly, and then even when things looked bad, always something good would happen. But so the good news was they sent me this student deferment. The bad news was it was the week before enrollment week, and I hadn't applied to a graduate school for anything because I was just waiting for the draft. So I came up to KU. Fortunately, I had taken the exams, the GMAT and the LSAT and the GRE, and so I come up and to KU and decided to go on the hill and shop for a degree. And the first stop was it was at the computer science department. I'd been a computer programmer that summer, and I didn't know what I wanted to be, but I knew I didn't want to be a computer programmer. But so I go into the computer science department, and they offer me a slot in the master's program and a job as a teaching assistant. But that didn't interest me. So that's the background. Now I go to the life-changing part here. I go down to the business school in Summerfield. I was over there today, and you'd be happy to know that nothing has changed. So I never met with Wiley Mitchell, who was the dean, and we reviewed everything. I explained my situation, and he offered me a slot in the MBA program, but said it would take 2 years because my undergraduate degree wasn't in business. So I said that I like the idea, but I'd be lucky to have one school year once the draft board figured out they made a mistake. So then here's the life-changing moment here. I think we all have the experience that big events come from just the tiniest little change or decision. I remember this very vividly. He reaches back in his credenza and he pulls out this big binder. And he starts thumbing through it. He said, "What's that?" He says, "I'm looking for what's the minimum requirement to be able to offer a master's degree in business from an accredited university." So he's thumbing through, and his eyes light up. He's figured it out. He said, by going through 2 semesters plus a summer school, I could get an MS degree in operations research. You took a couple classes, huh? So I thought it was great, but the only question I had was, what's operations research? So he never a man to waste a lot of words. He says, it has something to do with math. You'll like it. And that's how I got into the business school. And I went back to the computer science department. They were nice. They still wanted me as a teaching assistant, so that worked out great. Not a bad day's work. Getting ahead of the story, as it turns out, I actually never did get drafted. I was able to stall long enough for another miracle. When they put in a draft lottery, I drew a big number, and so I never had to go. So, like I say, Forrest Gump here. So, in my first semester in the business school, I had to take all these prerequisites, and one was a finance course, which quickly became my passion. And my professor there was very important in all of this, Frank Riley. He went on to have a great career in his own right. He was dean at Notre Dame, and he is head of that group that does the CFA exam. I forget what they call it. Anyway, he actually I will mention, because they'll say the bad say, he does. Whenever I've seen him, he always tells people about what a great term paper I had. I wanted to set this up because in a second you'll see another professor that didn't like one of my term papers. But anyway, it was everything was working great. Of course, I felt lucky just to be there, and I love the school, and I particularly like my job as a teaching assistant. So naturally, I decided I wanted to become a finance professor, and I looked around. I'd read this PhD dissertation from a guy at the University of Chicago, Gene Fama. I thought, wow, this is really cool. And Frank helped me get into the University of Chicago, and they offered me a great fellowship. And so that was how the business school launched me into whatever it is I did. So I go to Chicago, and it's an incredible period of time. The field of finance really emerged as an academic discipline kind of from the mid-50s to the mid-70s. There was just a huge amount of change in the field, and the epicenter was really at Chicago. And then my second year, actually, I worked for this guy, Gene Fama. I was a research assistant. And everything was going great. Then I ran into Milton Friedman, and he had this class, and what the class was, the people in it would take turns presenting papers, and so you had to have a paper you was interested in reading to get accepted into the class. So far, so good. And I thought I had it rigged, because I'd presented this paper in the business school, and they loved it, and I thought it was pretty good. You know, Frank Riley had liked my paper back at KU, so different paper, but well, Milton hated it. And I can remember vividly this one as well. I had kind of an out-of-body experiences. You have to understand, you're sitting next to the guy, and he's so short, his feet don't touch the ground. So I'm getting ripped by this guy, and his feet don't touch the ground. So I said, how did I get here? What am I doing here? And, I don't think I'm cut out to be a professor. And so next day, I walked into Fama's office, told him I was leaving the program, said, I've had it. And that was it. Now, that might sound like a downer to everybody else, but it turns out, of course, with the luck that I've had, that Fama said, well, funny you should say that. I've had this guy, Mac McQuown, out in San Francisco. He's always wanted one of my students. I'll give him a call. So he gave him a call, and we went out and we started index funds. So that was 1971. And it was, I've had the opportunity to apply great new ideas ever since. And the decision to leave the business school actually was not only great for me, I can assure you everybody at the business school now thinks it was a great idea as well. So eventually in 81, we started Dimensional, my firm, or our firm, or the firm of which I am a part. It was, now people think it was all easy, and new people coming in, assume you got handed to you. Well, our first office was my apartment, and our trading room was my spare bedroom. I kicked my brother, he actually been living with me, my brother Mark. So, anyway, that's how it kind of all evolved, and that's why Forrest Gump keeps coming back to me as every turn. I couldn't, everything, good things happened even when it looked like things were bad, things were good. So I've been totally blessed with that, and of course, my family can't be here tonight, but had a great family that I grew up with, the family we have. Sometimes people ask, what would you do differently if you had to do it over? I go, what are you kidding? I wouldn't change anything. I mean, I don't know how I got here, but part of it was learning from some of the mistakes I made, along the way. So with that, I'd like to conclude. I don't have 3 more stories. I just have a thought, but I thought I would have, for the students here, talk a little bit about just my idea of what it takes to be a success in business. And, basically you're all well prepared. Most of you probably are walking out here and think, gosh, I'm lacking this or I'm lacking that. You're prepared enough. The school teaches you how to think more than what to think, which is great. And you have a toolkit of things that will be very helpful in business. Now, the bad side of that is when you go out and compete in business, the other side also has that toolkit, and so that's not what's going to distinguish you. If you're going to have a breakout career, the key is imagination. And I just want to stress that. And a funny thing happened, actually. I don't know if you were there, Connor, last year when Senator Bradley, I brought him, to a basketball game. For those that are too young to remember, I think arguably Senator Bradley is the best student athlete of all time. He was National College Player of the Year as a basketball player and a Rhodes Scholar. And instead of playing basketball in the pros right away, he took 2 years off for his Rhodes Scholarship, studied in Oxford. And he took Princeton, to the Final Four, and he has the record for points scored in the Final Four game, 58. The bad news is it wasn't against Missouri. But of course we know that's impossible because Missouri has never been to a Final Four. That's what Shane advised me to do. Say something with Missouri and you'll be all right. So anyway, imagination is what's going to distinguish. And to the extent we've been successful, it's because we've had this great academic connection over the years, which is why my wife and I gave back a lot to the business school at Chicago, and but it's the imaginatively implementing the ideas has been our part of the program. The other thing I'll say though, with imagination, if you've got to accept the outcomes as they come. I mean, because if you follow your dream, it doesn't always work out. Although in my case it always has, but it doesn't. But I think conceptually it wouldn't always work out. But if you can, in my view, if you can use your imagination to follow your passion, and you can accept the outcomes, then you're a business success. This is in my book. Things worked out well for me. If they hadn't worked out well, would have tried something else. Go along with your dreams. I probably spent too much dreaming. I probably have ADD, but anyway, I'll close with, I think if you mentioned theme songs. If I would have a song, it would be John Lennon's Imagine. I remember Imagine, all the people?
Yeah.
So I'll close mine with words from Imagine. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you will join us and the world will live as one. So thanks.